So I previously talked about the fact that I have a book coming out in May. What I wanted to do in this video is just go a little bit behind the scenes and show you how my book has taken shape, or as they call it, a behind the scenes video. So let's take a look. The process of writing the Path to Freedom book has taken about 2 years. Although I wasn't working on it full time, and I did take about 4 months off from writing the book during the first lockdown of 2020. But what I thought I'd do is just take you through kind of the process I went through to write the book and talk about how my process changed over time as well. So first of all, I started off by producing a mind map, which was when I first started having the idea for the book. So I probably spent about a month just mind mapping out different ideas, which ultimately ended up as this big spider diagram. Now initially it was a lot more messy than this. This is kind of how I kind of whittled all the different ideas down for different chapters. Now initially this book was going to be in 8 parts and be about 48 chapters, which I very quickly came to realise was just going to be far too big. So what I ended up deciding to do was taking certain parts of this mind map and then focusing on just a subset of this for the first book. And it's going to be quite a big book, it'll be about 500 pages. And then some of the other parts will be follow-on books, so it'll end up being a series. So we've got things here, so part 1, thinking of going into business, and a whole series of chapters. Then we have a second part here called taking the plunge, or diving in. And then I've got a section on marketing and promotion. So those are kind of the 3 areas I decided to focus on for the first book, because if you are a reluctant entrepreneur and you're looking to start a business, these are kind of the 3 areas which I think people will need the help with the most to start with. And all of the other areas will make good alternate books, well not alternate, but additional books in a series. So once I've built that mind map, and this program by the way is called iThoughts X on the Mac. I'm not sure if there's a Windows version, but there's loads and loads of different mind mapping tools out there. There's some free ones as well, so Xmind is a particularly good one, which is free and open source. But I love using mind maps, so I use tools like this for every project I embark on. I always start off by building a mind map, and it's probably one of my most favourite tools to use, just because it's a really good visual way of building up an idea for a project. Okay, so what I do is when I write a chapter, when I decide what I want to write, I tend to like doing progress tracking sheets. So I've got one here that I've done for this book. So this is the progress tracking sheet I've used throughout the entire book. So I've got, in this column, I've got all of the main parts of the book, got chapter numbers, the chapter names, and then a whole series of statuses. So draft started is when I've actually first started writing a draft. I tend to work on several different chapters at the same time and sort of kind of move around as my sort of mood takes me. When I've completed one of those chapters, I then mark it in green. I then have another column here, so once I've completed a chapter I leave it for a little while, then I do a big review and editing process myself, so I might do a couple of revisions and proofreading myself. And then I send it out to my editor, so I use a lady who lives in Perth in Australia called Mandy, so she's my developmental editor for the book. So her job is to take what I've written chapter by chapter, and she will kind of critically analyse it, does it make sense, have I missed anything, have I said something stupid? So she'll kind of prompt me on things like that, but she'll also just make sure the book reads well, so she'll fix any sort of grammar faux pas, and she'll make it sound like a professional book, which is great. So here you can see that these sections here have already been edited by Mandy, they've already come back and been approved. These chapters here are with her at the moment, and these ones here are just about to go out to her as well. Now once I've received them back, I then mark them in here. So when this entire column turns green, that means the book's completed. So the book structure is fairly straightforward. So we've got some front matter content at the beginning of the book, so that's things like the introduction, my personal story, why I've written the book, that sort of thing. Part 1 of the book is all about when you're thinking of going into business and trying to help determine whether it's right for you. The second part of the book is all about actually sort of making the jump and the things you need to consider when you're starting a business. And then I decided to include a fairly detailed section on marketing, search engine optimization, branding, personal branding, all those sorts of things, because I firmly believe that, no matter what your skills are, building the product or building the service actually is kind of the easy part. If you're skilled in software development, then building the product, for example, is going to be probably fairly easy. Well, not easy, but it's kind of what you're good at. But marketing and branding and selling is incredibly complicated. And it's hard. If you're not used to it, it's very difficult. So that's why I decided to put a bit of focus on that in this book as well. So once I'd worked out kind of what I wanted to be in the book and what the chapter structure was, I then start off by doing a basic outline for each chapter. So I have an example outline here. Now, the outlines can be fairly detailed or, not too detailed. It just depends on how much help I need to give myself. So we've got one here, chapter 1, marketing basics. So this is a fairly lightweight outline, but it just kind of gives me an idea of the individual sections of each chapter, what it is I want to talk about. And by doing this for the whole book, it helps me really sort of map out and think what the content needs to be. So I tend to do the entire book as an outline form first. So 1 Word file per chapter. That's kind of how I structured it. Once I've done the outline, and again, I would have done this for the entire book, I then sort of go into writing that chapter. So if I find the Word file for that one, so that was chapter 21, marketing. So this is a chapter here that I've already written. It's already gone over to Mandy and she's already approved it, or edited it and then approved it. So just from that sort of short outline, I sort of managed to go to what you can see in the file here. So this particular chapter is, well, this one hasn't got the workshop questions in. Are you going to give me a word count? Oh, where's the word count gone? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I did this for the entire book, or pretty much the entire book. Initially I was using Word, mostly because that's what I had installed. Now Microsoft Word's okay. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible either. It's pretty good at what it does. But what I decided to do was to split the book out into 1 Word file per chapter, because when you have this chapter here, for example, it's a lot of text. This is 14 pages in Word, just under 7,000 words. Now if I've got 30 odd chapters, 160,000 words roughly, it's the size of the book in 1 Word document. It's just like a massive wall of text. And I find that quite intimidating, which is why I decided to split it down as 1 Word file per chapter. But what I did after a while is, I was actually quite a good way through the book before I did this, is I decided to switch over to using a tool called Scrivener, which is kind of like the premier writing tool for authors. If we just close this a little bit. So the thing I like about Scrivener is it lets you really split your chapters down into multiple files or into multiple sections. So it kind of makes it feel less intimidating. So like I've got chapter 1 here, which is what we were just looking at. But each section you can just kind of split down into its own little kind of sub file, which just makes it less intimidating to work on. So it's more like you're working on shorter sub chapters, I guess, or sort of sections of a chapter. But what I also like is the fact that, not that I've actually used it for this book, is you can actually collate all of your research into the same file as well. So if you think of it as a cross between a really flexible version of Word and OneNote or Evernote all built into one tool, it's really fantastic. What I also like is the fact that you can colour code things here. So, looking back, remembering back to what we had in that spreadsheet, so all of these sections here in green have already gone through my editor, but I've been adding an additional section into each chapter. So based on feedback from some beta readers. They're saying, there's lots of really good factual information in the book, but they want to hear more about my story and how some of the stuff that I talk about is applied to my business. So I've been adding this author approach section into each chapter. Now the reason I've coloured this blue is because Mandy hasn't seen this yet. So I need to send these chapters back over to her so she can go through and approve these sections. But by easily colour coding everything, I can just tell where everything is. So anything that's blue here needs to be seen by Mandy. All of these sections here, which are in orange, are with her at the moment, so I'm waiting for these to come back. So that kind of really helps you narrow down kind of where you are in the book. So I've kind of really stopped using that spreadsheet tracker, although I will continue to use it for the remainder of the book. But really I can kind of do the same job from here. Because what you can also do is, if you right click, you can also set a status. So here you can see that, that section there is at first draft. So everything is at first draft, pretty much, because it's been written. But if I do a second draft revision of something, I can set it to second draft or whatever you want. I mean, these are completely customizable within Scrivener, which is pretty cool. Now what you can also do as well, so if I look at this chapter heading here, you can only see that small section. Then you've got this section here, which is its own kind of sub-document. But if I enable Scrivenings, it lets you see that whole chapter as one big stream of consciousness, which is kind of like what you'd see in Word, which is quite cool. So if I go to draft up here, it takes a while. I can then, I can go and view the entire book. It's one big long file, which is pretty cool. I mean, to be honest, I very rarely look at it in that mode, but you can do. And then once I've done that, you can see here that my total word count is 162,000 words. Which is crazy. I never thought I'd ever write anything that long. But there you go. So Scrivener really is kind of like, for me, it's kind of like one of the premier writing tools. And the great thing is it's not very expensive. It's only about £40 or £50 to buy it. But it's very popular with novelists. So a lot of top novelists will use Scrivener just because it's a really nice way of working. So if you're writing a novel, for example, in your research, you can have all of your character profiles, your beat sheets, all of your plot outlines and everything in there. There's been a bit of a weird approach for me because I started out using Word and then I completely switched gears partway through the process, which I you wouldn't normally do, but after playing around with this tool I liked it so much that it just kind of felt like the right thing to do. And what you can also do with Scrivener is it will let you do your exporting as well. So just go draft. Click on here, which is the compile option. It lets you, there we go, so you can select the entire book. You can say, and I've got this set up here, so it's going to be a paperback 6 inches by 9 inches is the format I'm going to use. Now for each of these sections you can say whether it's a section header or a run-on section or something like that. So I've actually done quite a bit of work on the formatting, but if I hit compile and then save it to the desktop, just replace the current folders there, what it'll actually do is it'll build a PDF of the final book. Now what I haven't decided is whether I'm going to use this for the final typesetting or whether I'm going to hire a typesetter. I've not made that decision yet. It depends whether I can get it looking how I want through Scrivener first. So that's now currently saving, so it's 439 pages. So this is kind of how it looks when I export it now. So obviously bits are in blue because I need to send them over to Mandy. And I think it does quite a nice job of formatting the book. So I may just go with what Scrivener does. So I've not decided yet, but it looks like a book. Feels like a book, which is good. So I may well stick with this. I'm still learning how the compile feature works. I mean, Scrivener is one of those tools that you can either just use some of the basic features and get lots of value from it, or you can really dive in and it's fantastically deep. I mean, the PDF manual, the full reference manual, is about 900 pages for Scrivener. So you can go really deep with it. It really is fantastic. But that's kind of what I wanted to show you. So this is the process I've been using for writing the book. So I did kind of switch gears a bit and move everything over to Scrivener. So actually moving everything in and formatting it and splitting it all out, I mean, that took quite a bit of work. But it felt like the right thing to do for me. And you know, I much more enjoy using this tool. So that's what I wanted to show you, just a bit of a behind the scenes on how I've built the book. So at the time of writing this in early January, the book is almost done. I'm just adding a few more of those sections about my story into each chapter. I've got about 6 of those left to do, which will take me about a week probably. Send the final revisions over to Mandy's, which I'll probably have back maybe by the end of February or middle of March. And then it's all about proofreading, typesetting, getting test prints, and then get everything ready up to the launch in April, well, end of April, early May, which would be quite cool. So I really can't wait to get an actual printed version of the book in my hands. It's always nice when you get to that point. If you like what you've seen, if you could like the video, also, you know, if you've got any questions or you want to know anything about the book writing process, and you know, please leave a comment. And again, if you want to hear more information about setting up businesses and how to run them, how I've gone about it and stuff like that, then you know, please subscribe and hit that bell notification. So I shall see you in the next video.